In a world filled with noise, distractions, and endless challenges, there are timeless truths that can transform the way we live, love, and lead our lives. Dr. Wayne Dyer, often called the father of motivation, devoted his life to helping millions discover their inner power, break free from limitations, and align with the higher purpose that guides us all. His words are not just teachings, they are life-changing reminders that when we shift our mindset, we shift our destiny. Today, we'll uncover the 5 greatest life lessons you'll ever hear, lessons that hold the power to awaken your spirit, elevate your thinking, and move you toward the life you've always imagined. Imagine standing at a crossroads where one path leads to the life you've always dreamed of, and the other keeps you tied to everything you've been told you can't be, everything you've been taught to settle for, and everything you've been conditioned to believe defines you. This is the fundamental truth Dr. Wayne Dyer so passionately taught, that you are not a product of your circumstances, but rather a creator of your destiny. When we are born, we arrive without limitations, without labels, without boundaries, but as we grow older, society, culture, family, and environment start to demold us into believing that our lives are predetermined by external forces. We are told we can't pursue a passion because it's impractical. We are told we're not good enough because of a past mistake. We are told our future is limited because of where we come from. Yet these voices are not truth. They are echoes of limitation projected onto us. The real power comes when you awaken to the realization that you are the one writing your own story, that every single day you hold the pen in your hand, and that destiny is not something waiting for you somewhere out there, but something you are actively shaping with every choice, every thought, and every action you take. Think about how often people blame circumstances for their lack of progress. They say things like, if only I had more money, if only I had the right connections, if only I lived somewhere else, if only I was younger or older, if only I had more time. But all of these are conditions outside of themselves. They shift responsibility away from the one place where true change begins, the inner self. When you believe circumstances are the master of your fate, you hand over the steering wheel of your life and sit as a passenger. But when you claim ownership and responsibility, you shift from victimhood to empowerment. You begin to see that circumstances are not permanent prisons, but temporary conditions, and conditions can change when you change. Every great innovator, every leader, every person who left behind a legacy started in conditions that may have seemed impossible to others. They didn't wait for circumstances to align perfectly. They decided that they had the power to create, and by acting on that belief, they shaped a destiny far beyond what anyone expected. To fully embrace this truth, you have to reprogram the way you think about who you are. Most of us define ourselves based on history, on past failures, on childhood experiences, on mistakes, or on limitations someone once spoke into our lives. Maybe a teacher told you weren't smart enough. Maybe a parent told you to be realistic. Maybe society told you that your background or your gender or your circumstances would hold you back. When you internalize these voices, you begin to live them out as if they were true. But Dr. Wayne Dyer often reminded us that our past is not our identity. You are not your history, you are your potential. The mind is incredibly powerful, and when you repeatedly tell yourself that you are limited, you subconsciously create boundaries that don't actually exist. But when you shift that narrative and declare to yourself that you are a creator, that you are capable, that you are unlimited, something extraordinary happens. You begin to attract opportunities, ideas, and circumstances that align with the new story you are telling. Life doesn't respond to who you used to be, it responds to who you believe you are right now. One of the clearest examples of this truth can be seen in the stories of people who started with nothing but went on to build lives of abundance and influence. They could have blamed their circumstances, poverty, lack of education, discrimination, failure, but instead they chose to see themselves as creators. They chose to see adversity not as a final wall, but as a stepping stone. This mindset is not about ignoring challenges, it's about facing them with the awareness that challenges are temporary, but your vision for your life is eternal. The moment you stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance and start seeing yourself as an empowered creator, you unlock resilience, creativity, and resourcefulness you never knew you had. Suddenly, obstacles transform into opportunities, and what once looked like a limitation becomes a lesson that shapes your strength. At the core of this philosophy is the realization that your inner world creates your outer world. Circumstances don't define your destiny, your decisions, beliefs, and consistent actions do. You cannot always control the conditions around you, but you can control your response, and that response determines the trajectory of your life. Think about a storm at sea. Two ships may face the same waves, but the captain who knows how to steer with clarity and confidence will find a way forward, while the captain who panics and lets the storm dictate his moves will be tossed around aimlessly. Life is the same way. The storms may come, challenges may rise, but you are the captain of your ship, and destiny is shaped by how you choose to respond. When you embrace the role of creator, you also begin to realize that imagination is not a luxury, it is a tool for building your future. Every invention, every innovation, every masterpiece began first as an idea in someone's mind. The Wright brothers imagined flight before the world thought it possible. Edison imagined light before it filled homes. Great leaders imagined freedom before it was a reality. If they had allowed their circumstances to define them, none of those breakthroughs would have happened. They chose instead to live by imagination, and in doing so, they created destiny. Your imagination is a preview of what you can create, and when you act on it with conviction, you turn invisible ideas into visible reality. Another powerful aspect of this truth is responsibility. Being a creator of your destiny doesn't mean everything will be easy, but it does mean that you no longer blame others, the past, or external conditions for where you are. Responsibility is not about guilt, it's about power. When you accept that you are responsible for your life, you also accept that you are powerful enough to change it. This shift in perspective changes everything, because as long as you believe someone else is in control, whether it's your boss, the economy, or even luck, you remain powerless. But when you declare that you are responsible, you step into the role of a creator, and from that place you can design, build, and transform. Think for a moment about your own life. How many times have you stopped yourself from moving forward because of something outside your control? How many times have you waited for permission, waited for the perfect moment, or waited for circumstances to improve? The truth is that perfect moments don't arrive. They are created by the decision to act now. When you decide to stop waiting and start creating, you step into a level of freedom and empowerment that can never be taken away from you. That is the essence of being the creator of your destiny. It means that no matter where you are, no matter what has happened, no matter what others have said, you have within you the power to imagine, believe, and act in ways that build a future beyond your circumstances. The words we speak to ourselves in silence are the most powerful forces shaping the quality of our lives, because the inner dialogue we carry becomes the foundation upon which we build our decisions, our actions, and ultimately our destiny. Every human being has an internal voice, a constant stream of thoughts, judgments, interpretations, and narratives that run throughout the day. And often we are not even aware of how deeply that voice influences the external reality we experience. Wayne Dyer emphasized the importance of shifting your inner dialogue. He was pointing to one of the most transformative truths about human potential, that the story you tell yourself on the inside is what the outside world will reflect back to you. If your inner voice is filled with doubt, fear, self-criticism, and limitations, your world will begin to align with that narrative, reinforcing struggle and disappointment. But when your inner dialogue shifts toward encouragement, empowerment, possibility, and love, your external reality rises to meet that higher vibration. The way you speak to yourself is not just idle chatter. It is the blueprint by which your life is built. Consider how often people allow negative inner dialogue to sabotage their potential. A person may have a dream of starting a business, but the voice inside whispers, "What if you fail? What if you lose money? You're not smart enough. You don't have the resources, other people are already doing it better." Those words echo within, creating hesitation, fear, and paralysis until the dream is abandoned. Another person may want to pursue a relationship, but their inner voice says, "You're not attractive enough, you've been rejected before. Why would anyone love you?" Slowly they stop taking chances, they avoid opportunities, and they isolate themselves, not because the external world rejected them, but because their inner dialogue convinced them they were unworthy. The tragedy is that none of these limiting voices are ultimate truth. They are stories, often inherited from childhood experiences, social conditioning, or past disappointments. Yet when we repeat them often enough, they feel like reality, and life bends itself to confirm them. The beauty of understanding this principle is that you gain the power to rewrite your inner dialogue, and in doing so, you transform the very fabric of your external life. Imagine a person facing the same situation of starting a business, But instead of listening to fear, their inner dialogue says, I am capable, I am resourceful, and every challenge I face will make me stronger. Even if I stumble, I will learn and grow, and success will eventually be mine. This shift doesn't erase the challenges, but it changes how the person meets them. Instead of fear, they approach opportunities with confidence. Instead of giving up at the first setback, they persevere with resilience. Instead of shrinking back, they expand forward, and slowly the world mirrors back their determination. Their outer reality transforms because their inner dialogue aligns with belief, possibility, and creativity. This principle operates like a mirror. Life reflects what you project inwardly. If you constantly tell yourself that you're unlucky, unworthy, or incapable, life seems to present you with endless evidence that supports those claims. But if you train your inner dialogue to affirm abundance, worthiness, and strength, you start to notice opportunities, connections, and breakthroughs that you may have overlooked before. Your mind acts as a filter, deciding what information to prioritize and what to ignore, and that filter is shaped by your inner dialogue. Someone who constantly tells themselves, I'll never get ahead, will subconsciously ignore chances to advance because their mind isn't looking for them. On the other hand, someone whose inner dialogue says, opportunities are everywhere and I am ready for them, will notice possibilities that others walk past without a second glance. Shifting your inner dialogue begins with awareness. For many people, negative self-talk is so ingrained that they don't even hear it anymore. It has become background noise. Yet the first step to transformation is listening to that voice and asking, would I speak this way to someone I love? Often, the answer is no. Most people speak more harshly to themselves than they would to a stranger. They replay old mistakes, magnify their weaknesses, and belittle their achievements as if punishing themselves will somehow lead to improvement. But growth does not come from self-abuse. It comes from self-compassion. When you consciously change the tone of your inner dialogue to one of kindness, encouragement, and belief, you begin to plant seeds of transformation that bloom in the external world. This is why affirmations, visualization, and conscious thought practices are so powerful. They are not empty rituals, they are methods of rewiring the inner dialogue. When you repeat affirmations such as, I am worthy, I am capable, I am loved, you may not believe them fully at first, but over time, the repetition creates new neural pathways in the brain. Slowly, the inner voice begins to adopt these words as its natural tone. Visualization works in a similar way. When you picture yourself succeeding, thriving, and living fully, your mind rehearses that reality until it feels familiar, and your actions begin to align with it. These practices are like tuning instruments, helping your inner dialogue play in harmony with the music of the life you want to create. Dr. Wayne Dyer often taught that you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. And what you are is shaped by what you repeatedly tell yourself. You may want success, love, and peace, but if your inner dialogue is rooted in failure, unworthiness, and chaos, those desires remain distant. The shift happens when your inner voice begins to embody the qualities of the life you desire. If you want abundance, your inner dialogue must affirm abundance. If you want love, your inner dialogue must affirm worthiness. If you want peace, your inner dialogue must affirm calm and acceptance. In this way, shifting your inner dialogue is not just positive thinking. It is aligning your inner state with the reality you want to live. Another dimension of this truth lies in how your inner dialogue affects your body and energy. Negative self-talk doesn't just create emotional pain. It manifests physically as stress, tension, fatigue, and illness. When your inner dialogue constantly tells you that you are under threat, your body reacts with anxiety and unease. Over time, this can erode health and vitality. Conversely, when your inner dialogue is filled with encouragement and optimism, your body responds with energy, balance, and resilience. The connection between mind and body is profound, and the words you repeat inside yourself are signals that ripple through every cell. By shifting your inner dialogue to one of empowerment, you are not only transforming your outer world, but also nourishing your physical and spiritual well-being. It's also important to recognize that shifting your inner dialogue requires patience. Years of negative self-talk cannot be erased overnight. At first, the new affirmations may feel forced or artificial, but persistence is key. Just as a muscle strengthens with repeated exercise, your inner voice strengthens with repeated practice. Every time you choose to replace a thought of fear with a thought of faith, every time you replace self-criticism with self-compassion, you are building the habit of a new inner dialogue. Over time, this becomes your natural default, and with it, Your external life begins to mirror the strength and positivity within. Think of the countless people who have radically transformed their lives, not by winning the lottery, not by escaping hardship, but by changing the way they spoke to themselves. Someone once stuck in addiction begins to repeat, "I am free, I am strong, I am worthy of change." And with that new inner dialogue, they find the courage to break destructive patterns. Someone once lost in poverty begins to affirm, "I am resourceful, I am capable of building wealth, I attract opportunities," and slowly doors open that seemed closed before. Someone once filled with self-loathing begins to tell themselves, "I am lovable, I am deserving of kindness, I am enough," and they attract relationships that reflect that worthiness. These transformations are not accidents. They are the direct result of inner dialogue, creating outer shifts. When you understand this, you begin to treat your inner words as sacred. You realize that every thought is a seed planted in the soil of your mind, and what you repeat becomes the harvest you live. Plant seeds of fear, and you harvest regret. Plant seeds of hope, and you harvest possibility. Plant seeds of self-hatred, and you harvest despair. Plant seeds of self-love, and you harvest joy. The responsibility is yours, and the power is yours. Life listens to the dialogue within you, and it responds in kind. By shifting that dialogue, you are not just changing words. You are rewriting the script of your entire existence. Letting go of what you cannot control is one of the most liberating yet challenging principles of life, and it is a truth that Dr. Wayne Dyer returned to again and again because of the profound freedom it brings. Human beings have a natural tendency to hold tightly to outcomes, to try to manipulate circumstances, to demand that life conform to their desires and expectations, but in doing so they create suffering. Much of the stress, anxiety, and frustration people carry daily does not come from life itself, but from the resistance they generate when they try to control things that are far beyond their influence. It is like trying to stop the ocean with your hands or trying to push back the wind. The harder you struggle, the more exhausted you become, and still nothing changes. When you realize that some aspects of life are beyond your control and choose to release them instead of clinging to them, an incredible sense of peace begins to flow into your being. From the moment we are young, we are taught to grasp, to cling, to hold on. We are told to control our future, to secure outcomes, to ensure that life goes according to plan. And while there is value in vision, in responsibility, and in effort, the illusion arises when we believe that control is total. We cannot control what others think of us. We cannot control how the world responds. We cannot control whether storms come or opportunities appear, yet we try endlessly to do so. This leads to disappointment because reality will never bow entirely to our will. Letting go does not mean giving up, and it does not mean passivity. It means distinguishing between what belongs to you and what does not. Your thoughts, your actions, your attitude, these are yours. The opinions of others, the passing of time, the unfolding of events, these are not. When you understand this distinction and stop clinging to what was never yours to begin with, peace enters where struggle once lived. Imagine carrying a rope that is tied to a heavy boulder. You drag it day after day, and it slows you down, drains your energy, and wears out your spirit. Yet the boulder was never meant to be carried. It represents the uncontrollable, other people's choices, the past you cannot change, the future you cannot predict. Many people spend their lives dragging that rope, wondering why they feel so heavy, why they cannot move forward. Letting go means finally untying yourself from the boulder, setting it down, and realizing you are free to walk lightly, freely, and with energy. The weight was never yours to carry, but you believed it was, so you held on. Think about relationships for a moment. How often do people exhaust themselves trying to control others, trying to make someone love them, trying to make someone behave a certain way, trying to dictate another person's choices? This is one of the greatest causes of conflict because no matter how much you try, you cannot live someone else's life for them. People will make their own decisions, follow their own paths, and learn their own lessons just as you do. When you cling to the idea that you must control them, you create resentment, anger, and disappointment. But when you let go and allow others to be as they are, you create space for acceptance, for respect, and for peace. This does not mean you stop caring. It means you release the illusion that you can control another soul's journey. Another arena where this truth applies is the past. So many people are prisoners of yesterday, replaying old mistakes, carrying guilt, resentment, or bitterness, as if by holding on to it tightly they could somehow alter it. But the past is fixed. It cannot be controlled. It cannot be undone. Holding on to it only keeps you from living fully in the present. Letting go of the past does not erase memory, but it transforms your relationship with it. You recognize that what has happened is no longer within your power, but what you choose to do now is. Peace comes not by rewriting history, but by releasing it, thanking it for its lessons, and moving forward unchained. The same applies to the future. How often do we worry endlessly about what might happen? We try to control outcomes by obsessing, predicting, rehearsing scenarios in our minds, but the future has not yet arrived and therefore lies beyond our grasp. Worrying is an attempt to control tomorrow with today's energy, and it never succeeds. Letting go of the need to control the future does not mean you stop planning or preparing. It means you recognize that your responsibility is to act wisely in the present and allow the future to unfold as it will. You plant seeds today, you nurture them, and you let go of the obsession with whether rain will fall or sunshine will come. You cannot command the weather, but you can tend the soil. That is the essence of peace, doing what you can and releasing what you cannot. Wayne Dyer often spoke of trust, of aligning with the flow of life rather than resisting it. This is the deeper level of letting go. It is not just release, it is surrender to a greater intelligence, a belief that the universe, God, or life itself is unfolding in a way that ultimately serves growth, even when it does not align with our immediate desires. Resistance says, this should not be happening, but acceptance says, it is happening and I choose peace in the midst of it. When you release the constant need to control outcomes, you open yourself to possibilities you never imagined. Sometimes life closes a door not to punish you, but to guide you to another. Sometimes what feels like loss in the moment is preparation for a greater gain. By letting go, you stop fighting against the current and allow it to carry you to a wider ocean. This principle also reveals itself in the small details of daily life. How often do we lose peace over minor things, traffic, delays, inconveniences, mistakes others make? We become upset, frustrated, and angry because things are not going as we think they should. Yet in those moments, we are trying to control the uncontrollable. We cannot control traffic, but we can control whether we breathe deeply and listen to music or whether we rage and ruin our own mood. We cannot control delays, but we can control whether we use the time to reflect, read, or connect. When you stop demanding that life constantly conform to your timetable, peace replaces agitation. Letting go in small ways builds the habit of letting go in greater ways. Letting go also requires humility. At the root of the desire to control is often ego, the belief that we know best, that life must bend to our understanding, that our way is the only way. Ego resists, clings, demands, and fights. But humility recognizes that there is a larger order at work, one that we may not fully grasp. Humility bows to mystery, acknowledging that even when things do not make sense, they may still serve a purpose. When you let go of ego's grip, you make space for wisdom, compassion, and grace to flow in. Peace is not found in the triumph of ego, but in the surrender of it. There is also a profound connection between letting go and forgiveness. Holding on to anger, resentment, or the desire for revenge is another form of trying to control. We hold on to pain because we believe that by doing so we maintain power over those who hurt us, but in truth, the only person we bind is ourselves. Forgiveness is the ultimate act of letting go, not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve peace. When you forgive, you release the illusion of control over the past and set yourself free from the prison of bitterness. That release is one of the deepest forms of peace a human being can experience. When you practice letting go consistently, life begins to change. You find yourself less reactive, less anxious, less burdened. Situations that once triggered anger no longer have the same hold over you. Circumstances that once paralyzed you with worry no longer dominate your mind. You begin to live lighter, freer, and more present. This presence is peace. It is not about escaping reality, but about engaging with it without the weight of resistance. You discover that while you cannot control the wind, you can adjust your sails, and that is enough. This lesson is not mastered in a day. It is a lifelong practice, one that deepens with time, experience, and awareness. Every moment presents a new opportunity to ask, am I trying to control something that is not mine to control? If the answer is yes, then you breathe, release, and redirect your focus to what is truly within your power, your thoughts, your actions, your attitude. This simple shift, practiced again and again, builds a life of serenity even in the midst of uncertainty. Abundance is not something to be chased outside of yourself, but something that flows naturally when you align your life with gratitude and purpose. And this was one of the core teachings that Dr. Wayne Dyer returned to again and again. People spend much of their lives in pursuit of abundance, often reducing it to material wealth, possessions, or achievements. But true abundance is a state of being rather than a collection of things. It is an inner recognition that life itself is already overflowing with gifts, that you are already surrounded by more than enough, and that by living in gratitude and by connecting with a meaningful sense of purpose, you naturally attract more of what sustains and enriches your existence. When people believe that abundance is scarce, they live with fear, competition, and comparison. But when they believe abundance is infinite, they live with generosity, trust, and peace. Gratitude opens the door to this truth because it shifts the focus from what is missing to what is present. And purpose sustains it because it channels your life energy towards something greater than yourself. Many people live in a mindset of lack. They wake up thinking about what they don't have, what they haven't achieved, what is missing from their relationships, careers, or possessions. This mindset creates a cycle of dissatisfaction because when you focus on lack, you begin to notice it everywhere. The more you believe something is missing, the more evidence life seems to present to confirm it. Gratitude interrupts this cycle by turning your attention to what is already here. When you pause to appreciate the breath in your lungs, the shelter over your head, the relationships that support you, the opportunities before you, something shifts internally. That shift is abundance. It may not immediately add new possessions or external wealth, but it changes your energy, and that energy shapes your outer experience. Gratitude is not just a polite thank you. It is a powerful state of awareness that multiplies blessings because it tunes your mind to see them everywhere. Think of someone who always complains about not having enough money. Their inner dialogue is focused on scarcity, and they carry the energy of lack. This mindset may cause them to miss opportunities for growth, to reject risks that could lead to prosperity, or to spend recklessly in search of fulfillment they never find. On the other hand, consider someone who begins each day acknowledging the resources they do have, the skills, the connections, the small opportunities. Their gratitude fosters creativity, resourcefulness, and openness. They use what they have wisely. They see possibilities where others see problems, and gradually, more abundance flows into their life. The circumstances may be similar, but the outcomes are dramatically different because one mindset was rooted in scarcity while the other was aligned with gratitude. Purpose is the second pillar of true abundance. Gratitude makes you aware of what you already have, but purpose directs how you use it. Without purpose, abundance can feel empty. People may acquire wealth, possessions, or recognition, yet still feel unfulfilled because they are not channeling their gifts towards something meaningful. Purpose transforms abundance from accumulation into contribution. When your life is aligned with purpose, the things you receive are not just for you, but are used in service of something larger. This creates a flow where abundance circulates rather than stagnates. The more you give of your gifts, the more the universe seems to provide in return, not because you are chasing, but because you are aligned with a higher rhythm of life. Dr. Wayne Dyer often reminded us that abundance is a flow, not a reservoir. When you try to hoard it, fearing it will run out, you cut yourself off from its source. But when you allow it to circulate, when you give generously, when you live with gratitude, when you serve with purpose, it multiplies. Think of a river. When it flows freely, it nourishes everything around it. But if you dam it up, if you try to hold it all for yourself, the water stagnates and loses its vitality. Abundance works the same way. It grows through circulation, and gratitude and purpose are what keep it flowing. Consider the role of gratitude in everyday life. A person may have the same home, the same job, the same relationships, but if they focus on what is lacking, they will feel impoverished. Another person in the same situation may take time to notice the beauty of a sunrise, the kindness of a friend, the opportunity to learn something new, and they will feel rich. Gratitude transforms ordinary experiences into extraordinary blessings because it shifts perception. What you perceive determines how you experience life, and what you experience shapes what you attract. The person rooted in gratitude radiates joy, openness, and positivity, and as a result, they often draw more opportunities and relationships that reflect those qualities. Purpose deepens this by providing direction. Without purpose, even gratitude can feel incomplete. You may feel thankful for what you have, but still wonder, what is it all for? Purpose answers that question. It is the compass that guides how you use your time, talents, and treasures. A life of purpose turns abundance into legacy. It shifts the focus from how much can I get to how much can I give. And in giving, You discover a deeper form of abundance that material possessions alone can never provide. There is also a spiritual dimension to abundance that Wayne Dyer often emphasized. When you recognize that abundance is not created by your effort alone, but is connected to the universal source, you begin to trust that life will provide what you need when you need it. Gratitude strengthens this trust because it constantly reminds you of the ways in which you are already provided for. Purpose anchors it because it ensures that what flows to you is used meaningfully. This trust removes the fear of lack, which is one of the greatest obstacles to abundance. Fear says, there isn't enough, so I must hold tightly, while trust says, there is more than enough and I can release freely. The more you release, the more you receive, and the cycle continues. This principle can be applied not just to material wealth, but to love, to opportunities, to creativity, to joy. If you constantly say, there is not enough love in my life, you close yourself off from recognizing and receiving it. But if you practice gratitude for the love you already experience, the friend who listens, the family member who cares, the simple acts of kindness from strangers, you open your heart to receive more. When you then channel that love through purposeful action, giving kindness, offering compassion, serving others, you find that love flows back to you multiplied. Abundance in any form grows when it is met with gratitude and shared through purpose. It is also important to understand that gratitude and purpose transform challenges into part of abundance as well. When difficulties arise, a scarcity mindset says, this is unfair, this is proof that I don't have enough. Gratitude says, even in this difficulty, there are lessons, growth, and hidden blessings. Purpose says, I can use even this challenge to serve, to grow, and to align more deeply with what matters. In this way, abundance is not only about pleasant circumstances, it is about an unshakable state of being that sees opportunity in everything. That is why people who live in gratitude and purpose often radiate peace even in times of trial. They know that abundance is not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of meaning and appreciation within it. When you observe people who truly embody abundance, you notice that they are rarely the ones grasping, hoarding, or endlessly chasing. They are often those who give freely, who appreciate deeply, and who live with clarity of purpose. They may or may not be materially wealthy, but they carry a wealth of spirit that others cannot help but notice. They seem light, joyful, and magnetic. This is the natural outcome of living in alignment with gratitude and purpose. Every day presents opportunities to practice this. You can choose to wake up and focus on what is missing, or you can choose to notice even the smallest blessings. The warmth of sunlight, the sound of laughter, the chance to begin again. You can choose to chase abundance for yourself, or you can choose to direct your life energy towards something greater, something that leaves the world a little better than you found it. These choices, repeated over time, shape your reality. They transform scarcity into sufficiency, sufficiency into richness, and richness into legacy. The truth is that abundance is always available, but it is your inner alignment that determines whether you experience it. Gratitude tunes you to see it, purpose channels you to live it, and together they create a life where abundance flows naturally. When you live this way, you no longer chase after abundance because you realize you are already immersed in it, and the more you appreciate and share, the more it grows.